And then we go the next level down, how does that money get to the states and get distributed? And one of the ways is in particular in the large MPOs like MAG and PAG, the Tucson MPO. So I was really interested to hear more. I've been on the Bike Ped Committee in Maricopa County, the MAG Bike Ped Committee, but I really wanted an expert to talk about how that money moves from the federal government down to individual projects, excuse me. So this is Teri Kennedy to talk about that process.
Thank you, Mr. Bean, very much. And thank you for being here today and asking me to join you. It's a beautiful day outside. I don't know what we're all doing in here, but I'll see if I can answer some of those outstanding questions. My name is Teri Kennedy. I'm the Transportation Improvement Program Manager at the Maricopa Association of Governments. And we do use a lot of acronyms in transportation, so I am the tip manager at MAG, and that's the shortened version of all of that. A little bit about MAG and who is MAG. We are a organization called a Metropolitan Planning Organization. It is a federal designation for large urbanized areas. We're also a council of governments which has statutory designation. As far as a large transportation planning organization goes, we're made up of members of agencies, cities, towns, counties, and tribes in the Maricopa County area and in portions of Pinal County. We are growing, as you know, as an urbanized area. MAG was established in 1967, and the MAG members believe that by uniting, they can solve common problems that affect everyone in the region. And a little bit more about what we do at MAG. We do transportation planning. That was one of the original reasons why we were formed. We also do air quality planning for Maricopa County. We do human services planning in Maricopa County. We do water quality, solid waste management planning also in Maricopa County. And we do population estimates and projections for Maricopa County and assist the Central Arizona governments, which is another cog in Pinal County, with doing their population projections. And this becomes very important because the official population projections are how some of the federal funds and state funds get distributed. So those are very important tasks. Couple of key concepts about any type of transportation project that I'd like to go over is, how do we fund a transportation project? And we're here to talk about bike ped type projects. And really, it's always a partnership. It's a partnership between the local agency, sometimes private nonprofits come into play, sometimes private agencies, such as developers, are included in the funding. Local and regional funding is always primary in most of the bicycle and pedestrian projects that you see across the state. And then one of the other components I included in here for funding is the maintenance and operation, and that's one of the components that is largely overlooked when we're trying to get a bicycle project built. We think of a great idea, we know we need this project, and we want to get it done, and we found our champion, but that champion also needs to see it through to the maintenance and the operations side, which also has some costs to it. So federal funding is wonderful, but it doesn't fund everything or all those components. So that's something to keep in mind. And I'll talk a little bit more about how to get a project going. But also to construct a project, there's 4 typical work phases that go into that after you've done your planning. And that's the design, the environmental, acquiring your right-of-way, where the project is going to be if needed, constructing the project, and then of course again the maintenance and the operational aspects of it. So for Federal Highway Administration, Ms. LaRosa gave us a really great overview. She took half of the work away from me here describing what Federal Highway Administration funds look like. But they are allocated to states and sometimes to regions. And in the MAG region, this is just a really simplistic overview of what our regional transportation plan does for the allocation of funding. So for our federal highway funds that we receive, We put some of the funding toward our regional freeway highway program. We put some of the funding toward our arterial life cycle program, and those are your surface transportation arterial streets, you know, much like Country Club Drive. And then we sub-allocate about 113 million is what we got this year in Federal Highway Administration funds, and MAG does specific modal programming with that funding source. A couple of the types that are relevant for our congestion mitigation air quality improvement program, the CMAQ program. We distribute a portion to bicycle pedestrian projects, to intelligent transportation projects, to our air quality programs, and that includes paving of unpaved dirt roads, some of the street sweepers that you see that help reduce dust on the roadways, some of the regional ride share that encourage the grouping of folks and reduction of single occupancy vehicles driving around. Our Transportation Alternatives Program, that is one of the surface transportation block grant sub-allocations through the Federal Highways Administration, that's a mouthful. But TAP also is dedicated funding for bicycle and pedestrian projects for infrastructure in the MAG region. And then we also, as a region, decided to keep a $400,000 a year set aside for safe routes to school, non-infrastructure eligible activities, because that is such a popular program. Another funding source is the Surface Transportation Block Grant Program and CMAQ, which we take a portion of those funds and we include that in our overall planning work program. And that's very important for getting a project started is the planning process. So how much is available in federal funding to bicycle and pedestrian projects in the MAG region? For our draft transportation improvement program, which is one of my areas that I oversee, we have just under $68 million that is completely dedicated to bicycle and pedestrian facilities in the region. There's other programs such as transit and the arterials that that have an ancillary activity that while they're doing the roadway improvements, they will add bike lanes in if it's a new roadway being improved or being built. If it's improvements to an existing roadway, we typically fall back on the specific dedicated bike ped funds to do those improvements. I've highlighted the design assistance planning program, and I want to talk a lot about this. It's one of the smaller amounts of funding, but it's one of the areas that everyone in this room can play a key part in with your local agency where you're looking at doing a project for a city, town, county, or tribal area. So a little bit about the design assistance program. It started in 1996. We have been planning bicycle and pedestrian facilities for a long time in the MAG region. The purpose is really to jumpstart the development of projects. It's to do what we call pre-scoping and get some of the basic details from turning an idea into a construction project. So the design assistance program helps cities, towns, counties, tribes apply for these planning funds to scope out their project and get ready to apply for construction funds. One of the other items in the design assistance program is the eligible activities that we fund for this, and currently moving through our committee process is we're adding in the bike share component as an eligible category for design assistance. For those of you that have seen the green grid bikes out in the city of Phoenix, the city of Mesa, and soon coming to the city of Tempe, those are for Phoenix and for Tempe, those are Federal Highway Administration funded projects out there. Mesa chose to fund theirs all solely with Mesa dollars. However, I believe they're also looking at doing some expansion because the program is very popular in this region. So a little bit more about the design assistance program. We have funded over $43 million of projects that started out as a design assistance project. Do you have to start with design assistance before you get federal funding? Absolutely not. But if you go through the process, The process will help you develop a schedule, make sure your project really can be done, that you have all your ideas in one place so you can do a really great application and win your construction dollars in the end. Also, a spoiler alert for Jason, who's out in the front lobby. He's getting ready to release in May the next call for projects for design assistance. So that's coming up very quickly. And it typically takes about a year, once awarded, to go through a design assistance planning study. Again, on the slide up here, on the left-hand side, if we wanted to do a project, and I'll pick on the city of Mesa since we're in beautiful downtown Mesa, we identify a project either by a citizen, a citizens group, city council, through planning studies, but a project's identified. And they work with their local city, town, county, or tribal entity to apply to MAG for some design assistance funding. If awarded, then the project does go through a design assistance, and at the end of that project, you'll have what we call 15% plans, which gets you really ready and prepared to put in an application to MAG for some construction dollars, or to have it locally funded. That's another option. So everything on the right-hand side in the blue is activities that also happen at MAG, and this is leading up to being awarded federal dollars so you can start your construction at ADOT. We issue a call for projects. Typically it's every 2 to 3 years for construction projects, and that happens in August. Agency would submit an application. They would present to the modal committee, and in this case it would be the Bike Ped committee at MAG. And they're made up of transportation and engineering specialists within city, town, county, or tribal entities. And the project then goes through the formal approval process with all the city, town, county, community managers approving it and recommending it based on the available funding that we have. And it's included in the transportation improvement program. And that's really a document you can think of much as a phone book. It lists everything that we as a region know that we have funding for, and it's ready to go for ADOT to federally authorize it with FHWA so we can use the dollars. And that's a lot of process, but it works pretty seamlessly. It's easy to follow once we get started. And I'll give you a little bit more in-depth about that. So a bit about the application evaluations. The modal committee, the MAG, Bicycle and Pedestrian Modal Committee, once the applications come in for requests for federal dollars, they comment on the adequacy of the application as a group. They look at it, they do a technical evaluation, and they want to make sure that the application's understandable, that we have all the information that we need to do a formal evaluation. And we also ask ourselves as a committee, are there any questions that we need answered? And we'll go back to the applicant to help them clarify some of those outstanding questions that could come up. And the criteria that we evaluate the projects on is pretty substantial, but I've just highlighted a few items here. Safety is one of the components in the application. We embed many questions. There's 4 key areas for safety that we look at for bicycle and pedestrian projects. We also look at if the proposal has an effective maintenance or operations plan. So the applicant must provide an overview of how they envision the project will be maintained or operated if needed after we've constructed it. We also ask the applicant, how do they measure the success of the project? And this ties back in with Ms. LaRosa's comment about under MAP 21 and the FAST Act, we actually are putting performance measures in place. It's a federal requirement, and Federal Highways, ADOT, and MAG are developing some performance measures that will be included in the application and evaluation process. Also, one of the big key components for regional funds is, does this fill a gap or complete a project? This is a huge question, and it does get quite a bit of weight in an application because these are regional dollars, and we're trying to build a usable regional network of bicycle and pedestrian facilities in the MAG region. So I'm going to go through a little bit more of the criteria on how we evaluate projects. This is what I call the quantitative criteria, and it's data. So this is all the ones and zeros that gets put into an application. It's repeatable information, it's facts rather than the qualitative data that we look at. So the things we ask questions about are, what are the number of K-8 schools within a quarter mile and a half mile of your project application? What are the percent of families in poverty? And we have a radii for that. And what is the length of the facility connecting? So again, that regional component. Since we have so much evaluation criteria that we look at through the MAG Modal Committee evaluation, we've developed a tool, and this is an example that shows that as the committee puts in their scores, there's a weighted total score that's generated through all the criteria that we've outlined. And each one of the criteria areas does have an assignment of weight. We just tuned this up as a committee prior to issuing our call for projects this year. We have the quantitative for our CMAC program at 30%, qualitative at 15%, and qualitative is questions that don't really have a zero yes or no answer. It's more of, yes, it looks like this is a good application, or they could do what they say they're going to do, and it usually has a span of 1 to 5 for the rater to include. Air quality score. This is for our congestion mitigation air quality improvement program funded projects. And that's basically a cost effectiveness or a cost benefit analysis that's done for making sure that the funds are being equitably used. And then the committee rank is fairly low, but that includes the presentation by the applicant, the overall implementation of the project, and will the project meet the goals that the region has set forth to spend the dollars on. So a bit about our timeline for our evaluation process. Typically in June and July, we take a look at our applications and our criteria. The modal committee makes suggestions on improvements that could be made or modifications to the evaluation criteria that we use. In August, we release the call for projects, and I say this is about every 2 to 3 years. We don't do it every year because we program multiple years at a time just for efficiency's sake, because it does take so long to develop a project. And then it takes us a couple of months at our modal committee to go through the project presentations and evaluation and make sure that we have all the data that we need, and we can make a recommended priority rank order moving forward through our committees and our regional council, where the final approval happens, which is where our mayors and county supervisors reside under that council. After all that happens, about April and May, we develop a new tip about every other year, and in June, we have a new transportation improvement program. So today, in this process, we are in the beginning of April, and guess what? I have a new transportation improvement program that I'm developing, and in June, we will have those projects I just highlighted with all that $68.9 million worth of bike ped projects funded. So this is kind of a fun map. It's also running out front, but I thought that it was worthwhile to take a look at how far we've come. So this is what 1992 looked like for our bicycle network in the MAG region, and 2001, 2004, 2008, 2012, 15, and then here's our planned projects for 15 to 20 that are underway. And if you see a dot or a line up on the map in your community, if you live in the Maricopa County, Pinal County area, and you want a little bit more information on it, please contact myself or Jason Stevens out front, and we will get you a little bit more information on those projects. So with that, that's my presentation.
we have any quick questions for Terry?